Hello everyone and welcome to the Chef's Table series. My name is Carol O'Connor, co-host of this instructional cooking show. Today we are filming at One Bistro. We are filming Chef Tom Hupe, who is the executive chef here at One Bistro, located at 4 Points by Sheraton in Norwood. He will be making this rustic dish right in front of me. Seared sea scallops and winter squash ravioli topped with arugula salad as well as fresh Parmesan. And later on, we'll have a wine pairing and other segments. So let's go over to Tom and my co-host Joe Murphy to learn how to make this delicious dish.
Hi, I'm Chef Joe Murphy, and I want you to know that this show is produced by the Chef's Table Foundation. It's been developed to be instructional, informative, engaging, and hopefully we'll have some fun. And today, Chef Tom Hupe is here to cook a wonderful meal. And again, I want to say this, and I say it at the end, if you want to rewatch the show, get the recipe, you can go to the Chef's Table series.tv website and you can get your laptop, the recipe, and then cook along with the chef. Chef Tom.
Yep.
Great to see you.
Nice seeing you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this for us.
My pleasure.
You know, this is going to be, I love scallops, and what I want to do is, I always talk about mise en place on every show for the home cook. Mise en place, it just means everything in its place. So before you start your cooking, get everything set on a dish so that it makes your whole production seamless. And just to show you the importance of seamless, and I must admit, this is the first time I've ever seen this. Mise en place is an important term in every professional kitchen. And Chef Tom has taken that to the next level. So, Chef, show them your tattoo.
Mise en place.
Mise en place. And what we want to do, this is great, because I just make very strong point about this. You know, everybody, I don't care if you're one of the best chefs in the country, at one time or another, you'll leave out an ingredient. This eliminates it. And it really does make your cooking experience much more enjoyable. And I hope that I'm not being blocked out by this smoke signals. So, anyway, Chef, what are you cooking today?
We have a seared scallop and winter squash ravioli.
That sounds delicious. Now, why don't we just talk about your mise en place and tell the folks what your ingredients are.
Number one is a seared scallop. So we have scallops, shiitake mushroom, we have garlic, dried cranberries, an herb mix, so hard and soft herbs. It's fresh thyme, fresh basil, fresh rosemary. We have winter squash ravioli. In this case, it's a pumpkin and butternut with some fresh sage, red onion, baby arugula, Parmesan Reggiano. We have different oils, which I'll talk about later on.
Excellent.
And then kosher salt and fresh pepper.
Yeah. I've been getting back on explaining the salt issue. If you have a sodium problem and you have to watch your intake, kosher salt, sea salt is a better choice than table salt. And I don't think there are too many home cooks that use a kosher or sea salt. They use the table salt. Why is it better? Number one, if you poured a cup of sea salt or a cup of kosher salt and leveled it off and did the same thing with table salt, by weight, the table salt would be heavier than the sea and the kosher salt. Why? They're much larger crystals. So why do you find that in a professional kitchen? 2 reasons. It's much easier to handle. Try and take a pinch of table salt and just add that and over salt your dish versus using a larger crystal. So that's number 1. Number 2, because the weight factor is 2/3 to half of the table salt, you're taking in less sodium. At one time, I managed the salt brand for the Northeast, and I think the flavor profile myself, when you're using a good kosher salt or a sea salt, is much better than your table salt.
Absolutely.
So these are little techniques and things that you will see in a professional kitchen. This helps bring your home-cooked meal to that next level, and it's about building flavors, and that's the whole process. So, Chef, what are we going to do first here?
Step 1, I'm going to make sure I get all my mise en place, like you said, all set up. So I'm just going to slice my mushrooms and my red onions.
Okay.
And everything else is pretty much all set up.
Right.
So I'm going to do that first.
Okay. Can I just ask you a question?
Yep.
You have water boiling here, and I see you have sliced orange, you have cinnamon sticks,
Yep.
cloves,
Some cloves, some fresh ginger.
and fresh ginger. Okay. The aroma is unbelievable. And Chef and I were talking before the show. If he has guests over for dinner, he will do this automatically just to give an aroma throughout the house, to make it more comforting and give that, really earthy, crunchy atmosphere.
Yep.
So, but you're actually
It
gonna-
really has nothing to do with the dish.
Okay.
The raviolis that I'm going to cook in there, it's going to soak up a little bit of that flavor,
Yeah.
but it's mainly just for the aroma, just to
Right.
fill the room with some nice
Right.
fall.
So there's a nice
aromas.
tip for you for the home cook. If you're having guests over, and even if you're not serving dinner, it's a great technique. A couple of slices of orange, and this recipe will be on the website as well.
Yep.
Okay?
All right, so first
All
I'm
right,
going to
Chef.
start slicing mushrooms. I have shiitake mushrooms.
Nice.
Origin of shiitake mushrooms are Asian.
Okay.
Fun fact about shiitake mushrooms, they're considered a medicinal mushroom. A lot of Asian countries will use mushrooms, and the more you eat, the longer you live.
Right.
So that's why it's considered a medicinal mushroom.
Right.
They're really good. They're meaty mushrooms.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sort of run my knife through them.
Right. If you notice Chef's knife skill, he's not using his knife as a chisel. He's
Yeah.
slicing. And
The
he
front
has-
end
right.
stays on the cutting board and just
Right.
going up and down.
Yeah. And also, he's got his fingers, which in his knuckles, that's his guide. That eliminates slipping and cutting yourself.
So I'm
Not
just gonna get
completely,
this-
but for the most part, it will.
Just going to get this back in the bowl.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut my onion.
Okay.
Which, again, this is all just a rough sort of chop. There's no really rhyme or reason. Whatever you want. If you want a julienne, you can go straight down.
Right.
I like sort of a dice, so I'm going to
Yeah.
cut it this way first.
Okay.
Doesn't really matter. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent.
My fresh garlic, I'm just going to slice my garlic.
Okay.
Again, the tip of the knife doesn't leave the board.
Yeah. Chef just gave you a great tip on the knife skill. Tip of the knife does not leave the board. So as you're building your skill, use that. Use your your fingertips tucked in, and that knife is up against your knuckles, and that's your guide.
All right, so I got my mushrooms cut, my onions, my garlic. Searing the scallops. There's two main, very important aspects of this dish.
Right.
One is searing the scallop. You need a nice brown caramelized sear. In order to do that, you need a hot pan.
And that's another, I've been talking about this with the chefs we've had on. Do not be afraid of a hot pan. Because if it's a meat, a poultry, or even, for instance, a scallop, it's doing a number of things. It's sealing the inside so that you're not going to lose its natural juices, but also it's creating caramelization, which is flavor. Again, it's about this building profile So a hot pan is a good pan.
All right, so I'm going to start with my canola oil.
Right. And Chef, while you're putting your canola oil in, if you would explain the difference between
Yeah,
a wet
absolutely.
scallop and a dry scallop. If you want
Yeah.
to get that going, that's
I have
fine.
a dry scallop.
Right.
Very important that you use dry scallops.
Right.
Difference between wet and dry scallops is a dry scallop is harvested right out of the ocean, and it's shucked right on the docks, and then it's frozen and then shipped out to restaurants and grocery stores.
Right.
Wet scallops are harvested out of the ocean, and then they're brought to a facility and they're injected with preservatives. Those preservatives will draw in water and excess moisture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really difficult when you're pan searing them because a lot of that water, when you're cooking them, is going to come out of the scallop.
And get that milky looking
Yeah,
water.
and it's going to come in between the scallop and the oil, and you're not going to get a good brown sear.
Right.
Also, the water is going to evaporate out of the scallop once it gets hot, and your scallop is going to shrink up.
Right.
So you're going to go from a scallop that's that size
Right.
to a scallop that's about half the size,
Right.
and you're going to wonder why.
Yeah.
And it's-
These are great tips Chef is giving you. And I want you to know, if you go into your supermarket, most people don't have a fishmonger, unless you're named Fred Cataldo, then you probably have 4 or 5 of them. Having said that, if you go into your supermarket, ask that person behind the fish counter, are these wet scallops? If they are, I don't recommend you buy them. And they should tell you the truth. If they say they're dry, and as Chef just explained, when you start searing those and all of a sudden you're getting a lot of, well, to me it looks milky, but you know, the drainage off of the scallop, you know that they have a phosphate in them. And I believe that's what they
Yep.
preserve them with, the
Phosphates.
phosphate. So always ask for dry.
All right, so first oil. This is a canola and olive oil blend. We're going to make sure it's hot.
Right. I want to talk about the oil for a second. I love to cook with olive oil, but Chef just told you it's a canola and olive oil blend, and I'm not to put words in your mouth, Chef.
Yep.
Olive oil has a very low smoke temperature.
Smoke point, yep.
Right. So, with the canola oil, which has a much higher tolerance to heat, you're not going to have a burnt oil. Is that
Yes.
your thought on that?
An oil blend like I'm using, or canola oil or vegetable oil,
Right.
it's good for sauteing at very high heat.
Right.
When you're finishing a dish, which you'll be seeing I'll be doing, you're going to want to use 100% virgin, extra virgin olive oil.
EVOO, right. And for me, the reason I like EVOO, it's a lot more expensive. I like the flavor. It's that simple, okay? And I'll give you a little tip. I used to manage, I'm not going to mention the brand, when I was in food marketing, olive oil, if you prefer, for instance, olive oil from Italian olive oil, always read that label. If it says product of Italy, or excuse me, packed in Italy, it's not 100% Italian olive oil. It's a blend from different countries. I'm not saying it's bad, but if you're a purist, always look for product of Italy. All right? So that's a tip for you. Sorry, Chef, go ahead.
All right, so this pan's good and hot.
Yeah.
I like to season my scallops with salt and fresh ground pepper.
Okay.
Never white pepper. I don't even allow white pepper in my kitchen.
And why is that?
Black pepper's just got it's just got more flavor.
Right. Yeah, I don't like black pepper. Every once in a while, I'll try to do a little Asian cooking. They use a lot of white pepper, or the French use it in like a clam chowder or white sauces so that you're not looking at black flecks. I like the black pepper
Yeah,
flavor
absolutely.
profile. So I'm with you.
I'm going to season these before I put them in the pan. I'm going to make sure that they're dry.
Yeah,
I patted dry
right.
these with a paper towel.
Yeah.
And
That's a
putting
great
salt
tip, Chef.
is also going to make sure that it's not
Right.
wet.
Right. Any fish you use, okay, take a paper towel and pat it dry. Because it really, you're not going to get a lot of steaming, and it makes a much better finished product.
All right, so we're going to sear these.
You're just full of tips here, Chef.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have you back again.
Hear that sound? That
Yeah.
sear? That's exactly what you want to hear.
Right.
If you put your scallop in that pan and you don't hear that, that means the pan's not hot enough, the oil's not hot enough, and it's going to stick.
Okay.
You should be able to move it around like that.
Yeah,
And it's
okay.
good. So salt and pepper down.
Well, while you're doing searing this, Chef, what about turning that over to see if it's done, and then turning it over and then turning it back?
I mean, I go both ways on that. You kind of want to let the scallop to cook and let it do its thing.
Right.
You know, you don't want to mess around. You don't want to shake the pan a lot.
Right.
Just let it mellow out. Let it
Yeah.
do its thing. If you do need to check it, you know, there's nothing wrong with flipping it over and checking it.
Right.
This is the hot pan, so you're already getting that.
You're getting
that brown
nice
caramelized.
Right.
At the restaurant with this dish, we keep the scallops in the pan after we flip them and then incorporate all the other ingredients. I'm going to take them out of the pan because I really want to concentrate on getting a nice brown sear on the scallops.
Okay. Now, do you sear both sides?
I do, yeah.
Okay, great.
About a minute and a half, minute and 45 seconds on both sides. That'll give you about a medium scallop.
Nice, yeah. And I think that's the way it should be served. It
Yeah.
should be moist, not wet and slimy, but at least moist.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends, when I make them, you didn't cook this long enough. And
Yeah.
I get aggravated. But everybody has their own taste. But who am I? I'm the co-host of the Chef's Table series.
You notice when you cook, there's going to be hot and cold parts of the pan.
Right.
Just because not all I'm using an induction burner,
Yeah.
but not all ranges and stoves will
Have the same
disperse the heat evenly.
heat. Right.
The
Chef
two up
is
front
just
burn.
giving you some great. That is a great tip he just gave you. As you're working and you learn about your own stove, you will have hot spots, cool spots, even on your gas grills or char grills. And one technique is to put your hand over, open your palm up, and you can get an idea, you know, where the hot spot is. So that, for instance, all of a sudden, if he has two scallops that have a great sear on them and two don't, then move those two that really have a good sear to the cooler spot and then finish the others. Great tips.
So we're just going to sear these scallops on the other side now.
Yeah.
That's a good sear. It's nice and dark, golden brown. It's crispy on the edges.
Yeah.
So we're just going to let those go probably another 30, 45 seconds.
Excellent. And Chef, you know, when you're in a fast kitchen or even at home, if you have company and you're trying to get this meal out, there are certain things you can do to figure out the doneness. And on anything, you get to learn what it feels like to get to that medium level, okay? Just by pressing on it. And you're looking for a slight resistance with a sponge back motion. And I always say the finger method is a great method to figure out doneness, whether it's meat or scallops, because small finger to thumb, well done. Next finger, medium well. Next finger, medium, and then fourth index finger to thumb, rare. All right? And that's one technique to help you to learn doneness, so you're not, for instance, on a beautiful steak. You cut that in half, you're losing all the juice and the natural juices. And that's going to take away from your finished product. So.
All right, so these are nice and seared on both sides.
Excellent.
Pretty nice.
Right.
And again, you want to touch it. It's about medium, which is
Right.
perfect.
Yeah.
Once we finish this dish, we're going to bring the scallops back into the pan, heat everything up. It's probably going to bring it to about somewhere between medium and medium well,
Right.
which is the perfect
Right.
cooked scallop.
And you notice Chef in his dish had a little napkin or paper towel, and you're draining off some of the oil, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So a lot of the flavor from the scallops have now transferred into the oil. I'm going to keep that same oil.
Okay.
You don't want to be afraid of using the same pan.
Right.
If it looks a little dry, you can add some more oil.
Right.
And then we're going to go ahead and start sauteing our mushrooms.
Yeah. Chef just gave you a tip. If that pan looks a little dry because the oil that was in there was absorbed into your entree, your scallop, don't be afraid to put a little bit more oil in there.
Mushrooms and onions are going to go in the pan.
Nice. Now you like to use a red onion for this dish.
I like a red onion for this dish. Yeah, it's a little bit sweeter.
Right.
I don't want to draw out too much of the natural sugars out of this onion. I do want a little bit of a bite to it.
Okay.
Because we're going to get the sweetness from the dried cranberries.
Excellent. So Chef just gave you another tip. And the tip about the onions, he doesn't want to draw too much of the sugar out. And he wants a little bit of the bite, meaning how it crunches in your mouth.
Yep.
And so that's another great tip. And we're getting a lot of great tips here. So please go to the website, watch the show again. Watch it on your local access station.
I'm not going to cook these onions all the way through because I want a little bit of a bite to them.
Yeah.
I want a little bit of a bite to the mushrooms.
Right.
We're using high quality ingredients.
Right.
All organic grown,
Right.
sourced out locally.
Great. Yeah, we're going to talk about that at the end of the show with sous chef Tyler Clegg.
Yep.
Just so that you have an understanding of why some restaurants excel, and it's really in their ingredients. And the point I wanted to make after I talked about the onions was he didn't want to draw all the sugar out of the onion. Why? Because he had some dried cranberries, which has plenty of sugar. So as you're cooking, start thinking through the final recipe. He knows he has sugar coming out of his cranberries, dried, which are sweet, so let's not get too much sweetness here. And then you're going to get that finished, good flavor profile.
So these are just about good. I'm going to throw in my garlic. I didn't want to throw in my garlic too soon because I didn't want it to burn.
Right. Which is another great tip. When you put garlic in the pan, do not walk away from it.
Yeah.
You just want that light golden color, because as soon as that goes beyond there, your dish is ruined. So the onion, the mushrooms, you're going to get a very bitter taste.
So we're just going to move these around the pan a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw in my raviolis into the water,
Excellent.
which has been boiling away.
Yeah.
In the water, there's some orange, fresh ginger, clove, cinnamon.
Right.
Again, like you were saying, it's mainly about the aroma.
Right.
It'll pick up a little bit of that flavor, but I'm just going to throw those in there because this dish is almost done.
I got to tell you, we got to invent smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision?
Oh my God.
I'm going to add my herbs. It's a mixture of herbs. It's hard and soft herbs.
Yeah.
Hard herbs is something that have a very stick stem,
Right.
like rosemary or thyme or lavender.
Right.
Soft herbs are something that's more of like a soft leafy
Yeah.
herb, like basil, cilantro, parsley.
Sage.
Yep,
Fresh-
sage.
Yeah.
Here's just a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So we're going to throw that in there. And we're also going to throw in our dried cranberries.
Excellent.
This dish is very simple. It's easy. I feel like it's beginner level. And it can be like sort of tweaked and changed with the season. You know, if you wanted to use a wild mushroom ravioli, you wanted to take out the dried cranberries and throw in some, I don't know.
Golden raisins.
You can do whatever you want, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Chef just gave you a great tip again, as far as I'm concerned, because cooking is really, it's a passion, but it's a creative process. So do not be afraid to experiment. And that's really how you're going to learn what works and what doesn't work. It's great to follow a recipe, but it's also great to suit that dish to your taste. to taste.
Yep. I promote creativity in my restaurant with my line cooks.
Excellent.
I give them the go-ahead to go and change a dish,
Yeah.
or to, I write down a special and I give them the opportunity to have their own interpretation of the dish.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you can change this recipe if you want. You can switch it. You can take out ingredients. You can add ingredients. It really doesn't matter.
Right. Now, what happens if you sell 10 of those entrees and they all come back? Do you hit that chef in the kisser with
I
what's
will
returned?
fire him. He will no longer be working for me.
Yeah, okay. Very good.
So it's just about done. My raviolis are cooking. They're about done. They're floating to the top, so that's a good indication that they're done.
Right.
Again, like I said, I don't want to cook my onions and mushrooms all the way through, and they're about done. I'm going to go ahead and add my oil. It's an oil-based sauce, which is an extra virgin olive oil that I infuse some, again, hard and soft herbs and a little bit of garlic.
Yeah.
It's a finishing oil. So once I add this, I don't want to continue this on a hot pan.
Okay.
I don't want it to burn. I don't want it to smoke.
Now, when you finish this, are you going to finish it once the raviolis are in there, or do you do it now?
I'm going to throw it in there now. I'm going to throw the raviolis, the scallops, and then we're pretty
Excellent.
much almost done.
Right, yeah. One thing that we haven't done before on our show is talk about we have talked about sustainable produce, because in some professional kitchens you're going to find that. And sustainable products are basically your local farmer, and they may be organic or not organic. So we're going to have sous chef Tyler Clegg just come up here for a couple of minutes and just talk about what they do to source their fresh ingredients. All right, and Chef, do you have your mic?
I do.
Okay, sounds great. So on sustainable produce, and it could be anything from the ground, the ocean, commodity type items, you source at a local farm that
Right.
produces organic,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and what do you find the difference between, for instance, going to a supermarket and you're buying what's there?
Yeah, the difference is amazing. Just in taste alone, you can literally go by hand in hand and just taste it for yourself. Because I can't really sit up here and talk to you and tell you that, buying one zucchini here and a zucchini here, you just have to taste it.
Right.
And knowing exactly where it came from. It came right out of the ground in that backyard from that farm versus, from the supermarket, you have no idea where it came from.
Right. Now, Chef was telling me earlier, they have a relationship with this farmer, and he actually will take them out in the field, show them what's happening, talk about how he produced it. And, these type farms are really, I think probably in the last 10 years, you're seeing a lot more of them around. And it's really worth, if you love to cook, it's really worth that extra effort, I think, okay? Because to me, it's part of this creative process. When I walk into a commercial kitchen, I can just go, oh my God, I just love it. But whatever it is about cooking, I don't know why I get excited. Some people get excited with the canvas and oil paint or watercolors. I love food. If you came into my house, I'm telling you, it almost looks like a commercial kitchen. And I have a big, heavy commercial meat slicer, okay? He keeps saying, will you get rid of this thing? I said, mind your own business. I use it 3-4 times a year. It's there and I like it. It makes me feel like I'm gonna cook, okay? And maybe it's simple as that. Now, what about, for instance, when you get sustainable or organic vegetables, do you find difference in texture as far as the bite?
Oh yeah, there's much more of a bite. It's much more firm. It's not that like soft, mushy. It's
Right.
nice and it's crunchy in the mouth, and it's full of juice.
Right.
Sometimes you have to load it up with butter and herbs and whatnot. But
Yeah.
these vegetables or anything, you can
Right.
really let it stand out for itself. All it really needs is a little oil, maybe a little salt and pepper.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Which is great. And I think that says a lot for a restaurant. If you're trying to choose a restaurant and they're into sustainable, fresh products, believe me, your eating experience will absolutely be fantastic. And Carol O'Connor, the co-host, and I were here about 3 weeks ago. We had some pan-seared scallops with a fresh seaweed.
Seaweed salad, yeah.
Seaweed salad as an appetizer. I mean, it was like, oh my God, it was incredible. But the food, the service, and I can tell right away. And I'm talking about 20, 30 years ago, if I went into a restaurant and just bread, sometimes you get that like American-style French bread. You bite into it, it feels like a sponge. You know, they got great rolls and things here. So, you know, everything is being made fresh. And believe me, it makes a big difference. Now, this is a dish, Chef, just quickly to get back to the dish. This isn't a dish that you can really make 2 days before.
No.
No, you want to make it fresh. But as you can see, this is not intermediate level. It's almost introductory level
Yeah, it's beginner.
cooking.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, a few ingredients, which I always say is the way of the Italian cooking. Not a lot of ingredients, but really good ingredients.
Yeah, it's about high quality. As long
Yeah.
as you're using high quality ingredients,
Right.
you want to let them speak for themselves.
And they do.
You don't want to, over season
Right.
or mask these flavors with a heavy,
Right.
thick sauce,
Yeah.
like a cream sauce. You want to let them speak for themselves.
Which is great. Well, Chef Tyler, thank you.
Thank you.
Chef Tom,
Yeah.
great job. Why don't we get this
Want
plated
to finish
up?
this up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, when this recipe was first in the restaurant and we were serving it, it wasn't as simple. The method of cooking was different. It was more involved. It was more advanced. And then, we were thinking, okay, well, we're using high quality ingredients. We have a nice seared scallop. Let's just simplify it.
Yeah.
Let's make it easy. Let's make it versatile. Let's make it open to interpretation. So if you wanted to cook this at home, you can switch out ingredients. You can
Yeah.
just do different things with it. It's a very simple, easy dish.
Right.
It started off really complex, but now we kind of broke it down to its simplest form, and
Yeah. Great.
we found out that it's the best.
It smells great. Well, Chef, can we get this plated up?
Yeah,
and,
so we're going to take these raviolis
Yeah.
and we're going to throw them in the pan.
Okay. And you want to get this oil sauce, if you will, dress them with that?
Yeah. Again, we used an herb oil, so we're not going to finish it. We're not going to saute with the oil. We're just going to sort of toss everything together, get the scallops heated back up,
Yeah.
get the raviolis in there, toss it together,
Yeah.
and almost done.
Okay.
Just want to take your plate. There's no really rhyme or reason how we plate these. When we had it first on the menu, there was all these crazy ingredients, and I needed it on the fly. And then, I said, I need a scallop rav on the fly. And then they're sitting and they're plating everything, and they're lining everything up,
Right.
and it's perfect. Now I just sort of throw it on the plate. Where it lands is where it lands. I go with the whole rustic look.
Yeah.
There's a very thin line between rustic and sloppy, but yeah.
It's rustic.
I mean, I'm going to plate it a little bit, but normally this is just from the pan on the plate. When you're plating and presenting is 80% of it.
Right.
If you're looking at
Yeah.
good food, it's going to taste good.
Absolutely.
So I want to look for the best side that the scallops are seared in, and I'm just going to literally just throw it right on there.
Excellent. Oh, my
So I got
God.
my veg, I got my ravioli,
Yeah.
got the seared scallop.
Wow.
Then I'm going to top it with a salad. Just baby arugula.
Yeah. Oh, I love arugula.
Yeah, it's very peppery.
Peppery, right?
And I'm going to mix it with a Reggiano cheese, which is very
Nice.
salty.
Yeah.
So I do want to season the salad, but I want to be careful with it
Right, with the salt.
because you have to really understand your product and understand how it tastes and everything. So I'm
Right.
not going to over salt it
Yeah.
or over pepper it.
Right.
I have a little bit of truffle oil.
Truffle oil.
Like I said, you don't want to over season, but you do want to season, so just a little bit of salt,
Yeah.
a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. Just going to toss this up a little bit,
So
and then
there's
sort
no
of
pH
sprinkle
on there. No vinegar, no lemon
Nope,
juice.
nope. It's just
Okay.
olive oil,
Truffle oil.
truffle oil, salt, pepper,
Right.
and then we're just going to top it with some grated or shaved cheese.
This looks fantastic.
Dry Reggiano.
Okay.
It's a Parmesan cheese.
Yeah.
It's really dry. It's really salty. It's really nice.
Nice.
I'm just going to shave it.
Yeah, I love the fresh shaved.
I'll tell them how important it is to have a shaver.
Yeah, it's really important to always have a shaver or peeler on hand because you never know when you're actually going to need it. Whenever you're in the kitchen, it could always pop up, and you don't want to go through 1,000 different drawers.
Yeah.
So always just keep one handy in a pocket or just anywhere.
You know,
Class,
actually,
always got to be ready for anything.
Before the show, it was like dueling peelers. At the same time, they both pulled out their peelers. And I'm looking, saying, well, I didn't say anything to them. But Chef Tyler said, you always have to have a peeler handy. So there you go.
It's true.
Always.
Well, this is a great dish. It's been a great show. And I got to tell you, our audience guests are chomping at the bit. And they, like the camera crew, Frank, Isabel, Carol O'Connor, and Terry Curran, they're usually telling me, will you stop talking? So anyways, thank you very much, chefs.
Thank you.
The two of you. We want to really thank the One Bistro restaurant, an absolutely excellent restaurant. Great dishes, innovation at its best in fresh ingredients. And we're very pleased, as I said earlier, our new sommelier is the general manager here. So again, Chef, thank you. Watch the show again on the Chef's Table series.tv. You'll watch the show, you can get the recipe, you can get the wine pairing information. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's wine pairing. We are filming at One Bistro, located at 4 Points by Sheraton in Norwood. Today, I have wine director and general manager of One Bistro, Miguel Escobar. So today, Tom Hupe, who is the chef of One Bistro, he made a seared sea scallop with winter squash ravioli, delicious for the fall. So what wine did you choose, Miguel, for this delicious dish?
Hi, Carol. So I picked today a
Yes.
Oregon Pinot Gris.
You love Oregon.
I
He loves the
do
state of
love Oregon.
Have you been there?
Yes, I actually was fortunate enough to go to something called Oregon Pinot Camp, which is an industry. It's a wine camp for wine people a few years ago. And I got to spend a good amount of time over in wine country there. And it really is a beautiful area if anybody gets a chance to go. It's really, really one of a smaller wine area, a little bit newer in terms of wine in this country, but they make some beautiful whites, such as this wine, in addition to Pinot Noir, which is really what they got to be known for probably 15 years or so ago.
Oh, wow. Beautiful color.
So what we're having here is Adelsheim. So these, they're located in Chehalem Mountain AVA, so there's various AVAs
Yeah.
in this part, and they're located in Chehalem Mountain AVA. So
What's an AVA?
an AVA is an American viticultural area. So it's sort of an area designated only for wine growing, and it tells you where it's from. So Napa Valley
Wow.
would be an example, one of the
Okay.
most famous ones.
Yes.
So there's a few in Oregon and a few really in Willamette Valley. They have a very specific type of soil, marine sedimentary soil. So very rich soil type that produces these beautiful wines. A little bit different from the rest of the Willamette Valley.
Wow.
I'd like to give this a try.
Yes, I would love to. Oh, you picked the best smelling wines. And tasty, too.
So you mentioned the smell. Really those beautiful aromatics. Again, you get just beautiful pear, white fruit, white peach component, and then on the acid you get this brightness. Again, stainless steel,
Right.
finished. You really want to leave that acid on there. They had a great growing season, longer growing season. The longer you go, the more of that beautiful fruit you get. But you want to really be careful as a winemaker when you pick to really capture the right moment between your ripening and your acid. And it's really that combination that produces a rich, beautiful wine, but with enough brightness. So with a scallop,
Yes.
it's a great addition. It's not too big to overpower the scallop, but it's just enough the amount of acidity and brightness in the wine.
So when should they
When do
pick,
you-
when you say about the ripeness and
Sure,
the acidity?
sure.
Is it almost like a game? When do you
It
should
kind of is. Mother
choose
Nature.
it?
Mother Nature tells you when the right time. You can pick by something called Brix. So Brix is a measure of sugar at harvest. You can do it by that. You can pick by phenolic ripeness. Phenolic ripeness is when you're really getting those polyphenols, and the phenols in the
polyphenols?
wine really telling you it's time to pick, or you know, if you see a big rainstorm coming for the next week or a big heat spike, you better get out there and pick, because you're going to lose your whole crop, or if your birds are killing you, which happens. They have a lot of birds. A lot of these vineyards are biodynamic. They do a lot of biodynamic farming, and they're really great about nature preservation, and they're really, really way ahead of many other areas.
Because I find that this one, it's like clean and it's very enjoyable. I don't find that it has a lot of acidity.
Correct, and again, people
misassociate
acidity in wine to it being sour. You know, acidity is essential to food, to wine. It's that brightness. You know, it's lemon on your fish. It's a wine that has a finish. Without acidity, it's just a dull dish or a dull wine. So it's really well integrated. So you have beautiful fruit integrated with great acid, and that produces just a beautifully balanced, I think, example of an Oregon Pinot Gris.
What a perfect marriage.
Yeah. Should all be so lucky. I agree.
Perfect. Cheers.
Cheers, Carol.
Great
Enjoy.
job. So everyone, this has been this week's wine pairing with Tom Hupe's Seared sea scallops with winter squash ravioli. And we'll see you next week.
Hi folks, Steve LaCount, chef owner, Chiara Bistro, Westwood, with this week's chef's tip. This week I just wanted to talk about brining. Now brining is very popular around Thanksgiving time, where people always ask me, should I brine my turkey or not? I always say yes. It doesn't hurt the product, but it's also very popular year-round, where you can use it for pork ribs, pork loins, tenderloins. This particular brine I'm going to show you is very well suited for poultry and pork. Brining can actually never hurt a product. It is done for a couple of reasons. One is to add moisture to it, which it does do, but more importantly, it does add a flavor. So when brining turkey breasts here, I'm going to show you a simple 4-ingredient brine that can be used for turkey. It's also delicious with pork, pork loin or pork tenderloins. And then the question always is, how long should I brine the product? It really depends on the size of the product. If it's a whole turkey you're brining, and these are easily multiplied, these ingredients, you know, then I would probably look at something about 18 hours to 24 hours. But something as simple as a pork tenderloin that's only maybe weighs a pound, 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours is sufficient for that. So the ingredients for the brine here, and these are just proportional. They're very easily multiplied. If you need to make more or less, you can either do the multiplication, cut it down, or add to it. So I'm going to start with a quart of chicken stock. And rather than using salt, now I know a lot of people use kosher salt in brines, and I've heard from people, one of my customers just told me, oh, I brined a turkey and it was extremely salty. Rather than salt, I like to use soy sauce because it will give you the sodium that's required in brining. But at the same time, this will help to add a nice rich brown color to the finished product. So I'm going to do 2 cups of soy sauce, 1 cup of a really good grade A maple syrup, and then a 1/2 cup of dark molasses, which is left out of room temp because you know the old cold molasses saying. Okay, and it's really that simple. So it's 4 ingredients. You're going to whisk that together, and you just pour this over your pork tenderloin, your pork ribs, whatever meat or poultry that you're trying to flavor, and it's that simple. Now this would do probably like 3 to 4 or 5 pounds of pork. If you were doing a whole turkey, you might want to double this recipe. And if you're doing just a couple of pork tenderloins, you might want to cut it in half. But none of the ingredients are too expensive. Brining is a very inexpensive way to add flavor. And hopefully you'll be trying that, and try it before you grill some items too. It really adds that extra dimension of flavor. Thanks for watching. That's this week's tip.
Hi, I'm Margery Gann. I'm a registered dietitian at Ethos in Jamaica Plain. And for 30 years, as a wife and mother, I've been helping people eat better and healthier. Today, I want to talk a little bit about lentils. Recently, I went to a meeting where lentils and pulses, which is a name for the entire group of crops, were really coming front and center because of their incredible nutritional value. Lentils have about 230 calories per cup, so they're fairly low. High in protein at 18 grams of protein. High in carbohydrate at about 40 grams per cup, and pack a lot of fiber. For a woman, almost the entire amount you need for a day at 16 grams. Great source of copper, folate, and iron, although the iron isn't readily absorbed, and easy to prepare. Unlike dried beans and peas, which need to be soaked for a couple of hours before you cook them in order for them to be tender all the way through, lentils cook in about 20 minutes. Millions of kinds of lentils. These are some common ones that are available. These are black lentils, and they're very small, tender. This is the common brown lentils. This is the one we all know from lentil soup. And these are red lentils, and these are about the quickest cooking. These will cook very, very quickly, and actually, if you're not careful, will get very mushy. Lentils are, as I said, easy cooking and really versatile. There's the typical soup, salads, main dishes, lentil burgers or a vegetarian burger, and they'll pick up the flavor of any spice that you add. So you could add South Asian spices like cumin and get a really tasty, nutritious meal. If you don't want to cook for 20 minutes, we've got another way to buy them. Here, it's lentils in a sauce, ready to go. It's in a pouch. Zip it open, and this package is actually microwavable by itself. Take the top off, open it, put it in the microwave. In about 2 minutes, you've got a healthy, tasty lentil dish. So, lots of alternatives for lentils. A good source of protein, carbohydrate, and fiber. Easy to prepare, inexpensive. Try them. You might find a new taste treat in there. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Chef's Table Series restaurant interview. I am here at 4 Points by Sheraton, located on Route 1 in Norwood. I am here with Tom Hupe. He is the executive sous chef of the hotel, as well as the chef of One Bistro, where we are right now. So Tom, thanks for being on the show with me today. So Tom, tell me about your culinary background. I feel like what you're going to show the audience later, that you have such a passion for culinary arts.
Yeah, it started when I was 19 years old. Started waiting tables.
Yep. Oh.
And then I've always expressed interest in the kitchen,
Yep.
especially sauteing. And the chef said, "Hey, you want to give it a shot?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely."
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it started when I was 19, and then
Yep.
I came here in like 2003.
Oh my goodness, you've been here a while.
Well, then I left. I left around 2006.
Yep.
And then I
Took a little break, right? Did your own thing.
yeah, I left and learned other restaurants and different operations and things like that. And then I came back here in 2011.
Oh wow, and you've been here since. That's great.
Yeah.
So what's your approach to cooking?
Pretty much, I just try to do what other people are not doing.
Yeah?
Really, yeah.
Interesting.
You know, with menu items and specials and things like that.
Yep.
We don't really try to reinvent the wheel, but we just try to put our own spin on it, you know, our own flair, our own personal touch.
Right. Joe and I had dinner here about a couple of months ago, and we were like very wowed by the ingredients and the quality of the food here.
Yeah, we try to use local ingredients. We try to use in-season ingredients. And we're not really afraid to spend money on ingredients.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, how big is One Bistro? It's
Including the bar and the patio,
Yep.
it seats about 140.
Wow.
135, 140.
You must. Now, do you have a lot of events in this spot sometimes?
Yeah, we also have a private function room called 117.
Yep. Oh,
That's where we
117?
hold- Yeah,
That's cool.
That's where we hold a lot of our private dining events.
Oh, perfect. Wonderful. Now, tell me your top 3 ingredients. I usually ask chefs what their top ingredients are when it comes to cooking. What are your favorites?
I don't know. Pretty much a lot of my marinades.
Yep.
And my guys, they make fun of me because I throw parsley and everything.
You do. You.
Olive oil, garlic, and parsley. That's like my go-to marinade for anything.
Oh,
whether it's
perfect.
fish or chicken or steak.
Yep. Now, besides, and I know you, as a chef, you spend many hours, you know, in the kitchen, in the restaurant. But what other interests do you have?
I like playing the guitar.
Oh, you do?
I like fishing.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. I don't really have that much time to do things.
I know, but you know, those are like relaxing,
Yeah.
almost like you can really think and, you know, meditate and stuff like that. That's awesome, Tom. Now, show people, this is, everyone, this is Joe's favorite word. And when Joe and I found out that Tom had it, we were like, oh my goodness, this is his favorite word. So show the audience what you have.
It's a tattoo. It's called mise en place.
Mise en place,
It's a French term.
which means, ta-da,
Everything in its place.
exactly. That's Joe's favorite
Yeah.
word.
It's kind of like how I live my life too. Everything's got to be neat and clean and organized.
Yep.
And
I'm the same way.
lined up. Yeah.
Love that word.
I like
But
it.
Tom, thank you so much for being on
Yeah.
the restaurant interview segment
you.
with me. I really appreciate it. So everyone, this is Carol O'Connor of the Chef's Table series. This has been the restaurant interview segment of the show. I am here with Chef Tom Hupe, and we will see you next week.
I go both ways on that. It's you kind of want to let the scallop to cook and let it do its thing. You know, you don't want to mess around. You don't want to shake the pan a lot. Just let it mellow up. Let it do its thing. If you do need to check it, you know, there's nothing wrong with flipping it over and checking it.
Right.
This is a hot pan, so you're already getting
You
that
get
brown
nice
caramelized.
caramelized.
When you're plating and presenting is 80% of it. You know, if you're looking at good food, it's going to taste good. So I want to look for the best side that the scallops is seared in, and I'm just going to literally just throw it right on there. So I got my veg. I got
The Chef's Table series is shooting on location in cities and towns across Massachusetts. If you would like to suggest your favorite restaurant or attend a live taping of the show, please visit thechefstableseries.tv.